Welcome! Today, we're diving into a really big question. When you're working on something as huge and as long-term as reconciliation, how in the world do you keep that momentum going year after year? Well, we're going to explore a framework designed to do just that. And right away, this quote just nails the central idea. Reconciliation isn't a checklist item you can just tick off and say, okay, done. Nope. It's a living, breathing, continuous process of building and sometimes rebuilding relationships. So that's the big question, right? If it's a journey that doesn't really have a final destination, how do you make sure you don't get lost? What kind of map do you use to stay on course? Well, the framework we're digging into today offers one, and it's built on three really solid pillars. All right, so before we jump into those pillars, let's make sure we're all on the same page about what reconciliation actually is in this context. It goes way beyond just saying sorry for the past. It's an active, ongoing thing that involves everybody, longtime Canadians, newcomers, businesses, you name it. The really important words here are sustaining relationships and fostering cooperation. It's all about action. And this is so important. The goal isn't just about making symbolic gestures. True reconciliation means we see real, tangible results. Things like better community wellness, stronger social bonds, and a society where every single person feels like they belong and are valued. Okay, let's get into our first pillar, authentic engagement. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It all begins with people. It's about grounding this huge effort in real human-to-human connection. So what's the bedrock of any meaningful relationship? It's trust. You can't have reconciliation without it. And we're not talking about some flimsy surface-level trust. This is the kind that you build patiently by really taking the time to understand what makes each community tick. So how do you actually build that trust? Well, this framework lays it out pretty clearly in 3 steps. First, you have to listen. And I mean really listen, using things like forums and workshops. Second, you've got to be transparent. No secrets. Be open about what you're doing and use the feedback you get. And third, you empower the community, giving everyone a real voice and a real stake in what happens next. And this is where the magic happens. When you do engagement right, it's not just a feel-good exercise. It does 2 incredibly important things at once. It builds that mutual respect you absolutely need for people to work together, and it empowers the communities themselves, which makes the whole process stronger and last longer. Okay, so you've built that foundation of trust. What's next? Pillar 2 is all about taking that trust and turning it into real, tangible action through partnership. And this is a really key idea. No one group can pull us off alone. It's just too big. That's why partnerships are the engine here. They're what brings together the power, the resources, and the know-how of government, businesses, and community organizations. And the payoff for partnering up is huge. It's not just about pooling money and resources. When you bring diverse groups together, you get more creative solutions. You get a louder, more unified voice when you need to advocate for policy changes. And maybe most importantly, you create this incredible sense of shared purpose, which is the fuel you need to keep going for the long haul. And that leads us perfectly to our third and final pillar. So we've engaged people, we've teamed up for action, but how do we know if any of it is actually making a difference? Well, that's where smart, accountable measurement comes in. This is such a crucial point. Having good intentions is great. It's the necessary first step. But it's not enough. To really keep the momentum going, you have to be smart and strategic. You need to know what's working and what's not so you can learn, adapt, and get better over time. So to do that, you really need 2 kinds of information. On one hand, you have the quantitative data, the hard numbers, the how many and how much. That's what keeps you accountable. But on the other hand, you have the qualitative data, the stories, the feelings, the why, and the how. That's what tells you if relationships are truly changing. You absolutely need both to get the full picture. So what are we actually measuring? To get that full picture, the framework suggests looking at a few key things. We're not just talking about counting who shows up. We're tracking real shifts in things like cultural competency, overall community wellness, and, of course, the actual strength of the relationships we're trying to build. And let's not forget, we have some incredible tools at our fingertips to help with all this. Think about it. Digital platforms can bring thousands of people into a conversation, not just a few in a room. Data software helps us see the patterns, and online hubs can make vital resources and training available to absolutely everyone. At the end of the day, that's what all this measurement is for. It's about putting together a complete 360-degree view of your impact. The hard data shows that you're doing the work, and the personal stories show why it actually matters. So there you have it, our 3 pillars: engagement, partnership, and measurement. Now let's pull it all together and talk about the path forward, because we also have to be honest about the very real challenges along the way. So let's just recap the whole framework right here. You can see how it all flows together. It starts with authentic engagement, which is all about people and trust. That naturally leads to action and partnership, focused on collaboration. And the whole thing is kept on track by measurement and adaptation, which is all about data and accountability. It's a cycle, really, designed to keep building on itself. Okay, but let's be real for a second. This is not easy work. There are huge hurdles. Finding sustainable funding is a constant battle. The policy world can be a maze, and addressing deep historical trauma requires incredible care and resources. And of course, the ultimate challenge. How do you keep this fire lit for the next generation and the one after that? But that's exactly why having a framework like this is so powerful. It's not a magic wand that makes the challenges disappear. What it does do is give us a clear strategic roadmap to help us navigate those challenges, adapt to them, and most importantly, keep the journey moving forward, step by step. And so that really leaves us with the final, and maybe the most important question. This journey of reconciliation isn't for someone else to figure out. It involves everyone, in our communities, in our workplaces, big or small. So looking at this framework of engagement, partnership, and measurement, what's the role you can play?